Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that then,
No, we've just got a few on offshore
we'll
wind.
keep going. Go for going.
Offshore wind, is this the right group? Offshore wind?
Certainly under the energy outcome, yeah.
Are you aware of the proposal to develop Australia's first offshore wind farm in Commonwealth waters south of Victoria, developed by Offshore Energy?
My apologies, Senator. That was under outcome 2, in fact, not under outcome 4. Yes. Here. And the good news, Senator, is Ms Evans is here and will attempt to answer your question.
Thanks.
Sorry, Senator, yes, we are aware of the proposal.
Okay. Has the department been in contact with Offshore Energy about this project?
Yes.
Can you provide us with a brief summary of the project and a summary of where it is up to in terms of approvals?
Maybe rather than a specific project, I'll just describe the situation in that because there's no existing regulatory framework for developing offshore wind or providing a licence for offshore wind, we've been dealing with the proponent to talk through how we would do a bespoke licensing arrangement to allow them to do just the exploration work for what they have proposed. And in the process of doing that, we included a public call for expressions of interest or comments on the proposal back. I'll just check. It was in December of 2017, actually, and then we've been working through the various regulatory issues and requirements that would be necessary to support the government taking that kind of fairly bespoke approach to the project.
Okay. When did Offshore Energy first talk to the department about the project?
Well, it would have been earlier in 2017. I'd have to take on notice exactly when the date was, but the project's certainly been around for a long time. It's just because the circumstances are so complicated without there being an existing regulatory framework to handle what they are proposing to do, which is offshore, so outside of the state controlled waters, in Commonwealth waters. It's just taken a long time to work through all of the various issues.
And when did you first receive the application for the licence in the form that is currently under review now?
I'll have to take that on notice. I mean, we've been working with the proponents around the actual form of the licence, so it's been quite an iterative process.
And were any submissions, or have any submissions been received by the department?
Well, in response to the public
consultation.
Remember what we called it? Public call first. We just put a public notice that this was the proposal, and there were a number of submissions in response to that.
Okay. And have these been...
Are they public yet? No. So they have not yet been made public because the final decision is still pending consideration by the Minister.
The final decision...
About whether or not to issue the licence as we've currently got it formulated.
Okay. So it would be the normal process that they wouldn't be released until after the Minister has made the decision?
Yeah, consistent with what my energy colleagues have said, typically the process would be once a decision has been taken, then submissions are released, but that's up to the government and the Minister to finalise that approach.
Is the licence expected to allow any seismic exploration?
Do you know the answer to that? Yeah, I'll have to take that one on notice.
Would you be able to elaborate about what kind of exploration is currently being contemplated under the licence?
Yeah, it is very much an exploration of what the nature of the wind resource is like in the area, but sort of as to exactly what the proponent is proposing to do to make those, and I'll have to take it on notice.
Okay. And what about the potential environmental impacts of these forms of exploration?
I'll take it on notice. My understanding is that those have all been considered and we're using the existing. So again, while there is no regulatory framework for offshore wind, we are drawing from the existing frameworks for offshore oil and gas exploration and so on to make sure that all of the necessary protections are in place under this quite bespoke arrangement. And perhaps it is important to just comment that this is only a licence to explore the resource in the area. It doesn't provide any authority to proceed with any development. That will be a separate decision that will come later.
Has the department issued a recommendation on this licence to the minister?
Certainly we've briefed the minister.
And has the department issued a recommendation as part of that briefing?
Well, there would have been a recommendation for the minister.
And when did it make this recommendation?
I have to take that on notice.
If it was given approval, when do you expect that construction could start on the project?
That's definitely a hypothetical question, Senator, because the only thing we are considering at the moment under the licence is an exploration of the resource. So it's up to the proponent to then, they haven't even decided whether or not they would proceed, let alone put forward an actual project proposal.
Does the department have an ongoing work program in relation to this licence?
We have an ongoing work program to think about how do we put in place an offshore regulatory framework rather than just the specific licence. So that work has begun.
That's basically the next steps.
Yeah.
Okay. And in general terms, does the department have an ongoing work program on any other aspects of offshore renewable energy?
There are other elements of, in the sort of new technology area, we look at other offshore options. So there's been a few approaches through ARENA and the like for tidal energy and wave energy, if that's what you're getting at. So there is some exploration of those technologies as well.
Is there any legislation or changes in regulations in preparation?
I'm not aware. Those particular examples have all been much closer to shore. So it's the offshore wind example is the first time we have had to really start thinking about how do we manage the sort of beyond 3 kilometres Commonwealth water regulatory framework. So I think the other options are closer to shore.
Is there any intention to move the approvals process to another agency?
I think we'll have to think through all of that as we develop the regulatory framework itself, because quite a number of agencies are involved. As we've been discussing the options for this licence, we've had to involve really a really broad range of agencies because of the different interests. So that'll be something we think through. But from an environmental impact perspective, I think we would be the ones involved in that.
And has the department received any other inquiries or applications from other parties interested in renewable energy projects in Commonwealth waters?
There was at least one other proponent that expressed some interest in also doing offshore wind. We're not proposing to proceed with their approach.
Thanks for that. Thank you. Senator Hanson-Young.